In the grim darkness of the far future, there are fates that transcend death itself. We speak often of the horrors that lurk in the Imperium and the warp, of demons that feast on souls and traitors who damn themselves for power. But there exists a suffering so profound, so utterly complete, that even the servants of the dark gods whisper of it with something approaching fear. It is the fate of those who sit upon the throne mechanicum of a chaos knight, and the secret horror that dwells within that sarcophagus is more terrible than any weapon the towering war engine carries. When you see a chaos knight striding across the battlefield, you witness a god of war made manifest in iron and hatred. These towering engines stand as tall as buildings, their footsteps shaking the earth, their weapons capable of annihilating entire companies of soldiers with a single volley. They are draped in the iconography of the ruinous powers, their armor plates twisted and mutated into blasphemous forms, their war cries echoing with the screams of the damned. To the enemies of chaos, they are terror incarnate. To the servants of darkness, they are the ultimate expression of the dark god's power over the material realm. But inside that sarcophagus, within the cockpit where the pilot sits fused to their ancient throne, there exists a nightmare that makes even the horrors of the warp seem merciful by comparison. The throne mechanicum of a chaos knight is not merely a control system or an interface between pilot and machine. It is a prison of eternal torment, a device that has become saturated with the screaming echoes of every damned soul that ever bonded with it, a torture engine that drives its occupants slowly, inexorably mad, while denying them the release of death. To understand the full depth of this horror, we must first understand what the throne mechanicum was meant to be. We must journey back to the days before corruption, before the fall, to when these ancient devices were tools of humanity's expansion across the stars. Only by understanding what they were can we truly comprehend what they have become, and why the fate of a Chaos Knight pilot represents one of the most brutal transformations in all of Warhammer 40,000. The sacred becoming, understanding the throne. Mechanicum. Long before the age of strife, before the Emperor walked openly among humanity, during that lost era known as the Dark Age of technology, mankind reached heights of achievement that the 41st Millennium can barely comprehend. Among the countless wonders created in that golden age were the night suits, towering war machines designed to protect the far-flung colony worlds of humanity's burgeoning interstellar empire. These weren't mere vehicles to be driven. They were something far more sophisticated, far more intimate. They were extensions of the pilot's own body and mind, requiring a neural connection so complete that pilot and machine would become, in essence, a single being, the same. Technology that made this possible was the Throne Mechanicum, an architect marvel that even the tech priests of Mars in the 41st Millennium do not fully understand. Through neural sockets surgically implanted into the base of the skull, connecting directly to the prefrontal cranial cortex and cerebellum, a noble pilot would interface with their night suit through this throne. Umbilical interface cords would attach to these neural ports, creating a mind impulse control link that allowed the pilot to wear their multi-story war machine like a second skin, moving its massive limbs with the same fluid grace they might move their own arms and legs. But the Throne Mechanicum was more than a simple interface. It was, in a very real sense, alive with the memories of everyone who had ever bonded with it. Through a process that even the Adeptus Mechanicus cannot fully explain, the throne retained neural echoes, digital imprints of every previous pilot's personality, memories, and consciousness. These weren't complete copies of the individuals who had died. They were fragments, shadows, echoes of who those people had been, preserved in the throne's ancient circuitry like ghosts haunting the machine. The process of bonding with a Throne Mechanicum, known as the Ritual of Becoming, was never meant to be easy. On Imperial night worlds, when young nobles reached their 18th standard year, they would be deemed ready to attempt the ritual. After having neural sockets surgically implanted, they would be taken to the Chamber of Echoes, a sacred room deep within their house's sanctuary where the night suits were stored when not in use. There, in the darkness, each aspirant would be wired into their chosen throne mechanicum and left alone for the entirety of a long night. What happened during that night would determine whether the young noble would emerge as a night pilot or be carried out as a corpse. The neural echoes stored within the throne would surge forward, inducing hallucinations, waking nightmares, and shuddering fugue states. Strange nerve impulses would race through the aspirant's body, causing involuntary movements, moans, screams, and sometimes terrified laughter or spontaneous sobbing. The young nobles would depart the realm of the real entirely, falling into what could only be described as a churning sea of ghosts that resided within the throne's neural network. During this trance state, the aspirant had to find within themselves the strength of character to subdue these echoes of the past. They had to assert their own personality, their own will, over the accumulated voices of their ancestors. The process was described as being like a general seizing a fortress, claiming the neural space of the throne by sheer force of will, and planting their own flag for all to see. Those who succeeded would emerge changed. The neural chemistry of their brains would be fundamentally altered, their dominant personality traits amplified and exaggerated by the throne's programming. This wasn't without cost. 1 aspirant in 10 did not survive the ritual of becoming. Some had their minds burned out by neural feedback, their brains literally fried by the strain of the connection. Others had their sanity shattered by the hallucinatory trauma, emerging as broken, gibbering wrecks. Even those who survived and successfully bonded with their throne were forever changed in ways that went far beyond their amplified personality traits. The throne mechanicum would reprogram its pilot's mind, implanting strong positive associations with concepts like fealty, obligation, duty, and social hierarchy. It would instill in them a deep, almost mystical reverence for their ancestors and the traditions of their house. This wasn't a side effect or an unintended consequence. This was by design, programmed into the thrones by their unknown creators during the dark age of technology. The prevailing theory among those few who study such things is that this mental conditioning was deliberately included as a safeguard, a way to ensure that pilots bonded to such powerful war machines would remain loyal to the societies they were meant to protect and would not turn their weapons against their own people. For Imperial Knights, this system worked as intended. The combination of ancestral wisdom stored in the throne and the psychological conditioning created pilots who were deeply honorable, bound by codes of chivalry and duty that stretched back countless generations. When a pilot died, their personality would be absorbed into the throne, becoming one more voice of wisdom and guidance for future generations. The machine spirit of the knight suit itself would be shaped by these accumulated personalities, developing its own quirks and characteristics. Some knights became known for being aggressive and eager for battle. Others developed reputations for steadiness under fire or tactical cunning. It was a system that had endured for millennia, producing some of the Imperium's most stalwart defenders. The Imperial Knights were rightly regarded as paragons of loyalty, their honor considered unshakable, their dedication to the Emperor absolute. The very idea of a knight turning traitor was almost unthinkable, a perversion of everything the throne mechanicum was designed to prevent. But therein lay the seeds of a horror beyond imagining. Because when a knight house did fall to chaos, when corruption found its way into the throne mechanicum, that same system designed to preserve honor and loyalty would become an engine of eternal torment. The fall, how sacred machines become prisons of torment. The corruption of a knight house and its thrones. Mechanicum can happen through many paths, but they all share one terrible commonality. Once the rot begins, it spreads like a disease through every aspect of the knight, from the machine's spirit to the neural echoes trapped within its throne. Understanding how this corruption occurs is essential to grasping the full horror of what these pilots endure. During the Horus Heresy, the first great wave of knight betrayals swept across the galaxy. Many knight houses had sworn ancient oaths of loyalty to specific space marine legions or Titan legions, bonds of honor that stretched back to the Great Crusade, when these forces had fought side by side to bring worlds into compliance with the Imperium. When War Master Horus raised his banner of rebellion and fully half the legion's Astartes turned traitor, these oaths became chains that dragged entire knight houses into damnation. Consider the position these nobles found themselves in. They had sworn sacred oaths, the kind of vows that the throne mechanicum had programmed them to value above all else. Their conditioning made breaking such oaths psychologically devastating. But many of these oaths had been sworn to forces that were now committing atrocities, participating in acts of such depravity that they violated every other principle the knights held dear. The nobles were caught between their loyalty to the Imperium and the Emperor, and their sworn oaths to legions that were now clearly traitors. The throne mechanicum made this conflict unbearable. Remember, within each throne resided the neural echoes of previous pilots, ancestral voices that would normally provide wisdom and guidance. For knights bound to traitor forces, these voices became instruments of psychological torture. Every time a noble sat upon their throne, every time they linked their consciousness with their knight, they would hear the screaming disapproval of their forebears. Ancestors who had sworn those original oaths would rail against their descendants for breaking them. Other ancestors, those who had served the Imperium with distinction, would condemn them for betraying humanity itself. In an attempt to cope with this psychological torment, many fallen nobles doubled down on their oaths to the traitor forces. They rationalized their actions, convinced themselves that they were maintaining their honor by staying true to their sworn word, no matter what atrocities that oath compelled them to commit. They threw themselves deeper into the madness, fighting with increased fervor in battles that became progressively more horrific. But this only made things worse. With each terrible act, with each civilian population massacred and each loyal imperial force destroyed, the guilt would grow. The ancestors' screams would intensify. The nobles would feel their sanity fraying at the edges, their sense of self eroding under the constant assault of the voices in their heads. Some tried to silence the screams through even more violence, believing that if they just proved themselves worthy through their martial prowess, the ancestors might finally stop condemning them. Others sought solace in the promises of the Chaos Gods, opening themselves to corruption in the hope that the ruinous powers might grant them peace from their psychological torment. They found no such peace. Instead, they found something far worse. Because when a Chaos Knight pilot dies while bonded to their throne, the corruption they've accumulated doesn't die with them. Their twisted personality, their madness, their guilt and self-loathing and bloodlust, all of it gets imprinted onto the throne mechanicum, just as the personalities of loyal Imperial Knight pilots do. But unlike those honorable echoes, these corrupted imprints carry with them the taint of chaos. The neural echo of a fallen noble doesn't provide wisdom or guidance. It screams, it rages, it drives whoever next bonds with the throne toward the same damnation that consumed it. And with each successive generation of pilots, the corruption deepens. Each new fallen noble adds their own madness to the chorus, their own twisted personality to the sea of ghosts within the throne. The process becomes self-perpetuating, a cycle of madness feeding madness, corruption breeding corruption. This is how the iconoclast houses came to be. These are knight houses, whose corruption began during the heresy, driven mad by trying to reconcile their oaths with their conscience. Over the 10,000 years since, they've descended into complete depravity, their thrones mechanicum saturated with the screaming echoes of countless insane and bloodthirsty nobles. A young aspirant attempting the ritual of becoming in an iconoclast house doesn't face the stern but fair judgment of honored ancestors. They face a howling mob of the damned, voices that urge them toward violence and excess, that promise power through slaughter, that demand they embrace their worst impulses. Only the most strong-willed survive to bond with such thrones, and those who do emerge fundamentally broken. Their dominant personality traits aren't just amplified, they're twisted into something monstrous. A tendency toward confidence becomes megalomaniacal arrogance. Courage becomes reckless bloodlust. A sense of duty becomes fanatical obsession. The very psychological conditioning that made Imperial knights so honorable now works to reinforce these corrupted values, making the fallen noble absolutely certain that their depravity is righteous, their atrocities justified. But the iconoclast houses, terrible as they are, at least fell to corruption through a twisted form of loyalty. The infernal houses represent something far more deliberate, far more sinister. These are night houses that were specifically targeted for corruption by the Dark Mechanicum, and the methods used to break them reveal just how thoroughly the Throne Mechanicum can be perverted. During and after the Horus Heresy, the Dark Mechanicum captured numerous knight suits and their pilots. What they did to these prisoners in their nightmarish forge temples makes even the slow corruption of the iconoclast houses seem merciful. The Dark Magi subjected the Throne's Mechanicum to systematic torture designed to break them completely. They bombarded the thrones with scrap code, a form of warp-infested computer virus that cripples machine spirits and perverts technology to the cause of chaos. They summoned spectrophagic demons, entities specifically created to devour the spectral neural echoes of previous pilots, either destroying them entirely or possessing them and twisting them into something obscene. In some cases, the Dark Mechanicum used their twisted technologies to open tiny warp rifts directly inside the ancient circuitry of the thrones. Imagine what that would mean for the neural echoes trapped within. They weren't just exposed to chaos, they were forced to exist partially within the warp itself, their consciousness fragmented between the material realm and that realm of pure emotion and nightmare. The suffering this would cause is beyond comprehension. Most of the Throne's Mechanicum subjected to these experiments were destroyed, their ancient mechanisms unable to withstand such abuse. But those that survived, those rare few that endured the torture, were corrupted beyond any possibility of redemption. When pilots were then forcibly bonded to these ruined thrones through unspeakable procedures, they found themselves connected to something that was no longer merely a machine, or even a haunted machine, but rather a gateway to torment, a direct conduit to the darkest depths of chaos. These became the progenitors of the infernal houses, and through their ongoing relationship with the Dark Mechanicum, they found ever more twisted ways to further corrupt their knights. The tech priests who serve them, called idolaters, learn their craft in what are known as screaming soul forges, nightmarish facilities where diabolic rituals blend with arcane technology. Through these rituals, idolaters sacrifice living victims and captured war machines on great cog-shaped altars, entreating the entities that dwell within the warp to grant them forbidden knowledge about how to further desecrate the Throne's Mechanicum. The idolaters work in groups called cabals, and they can perform rituals that increase a Chaos Knight's power, subjugate enemies through psychic yokes and spiritual shackles, or even grant their masters glimpses of possible futures. But all of this dark power comes at a price paid by the pilot. Every enhancement, every demonic blessing, every warp-fueled weapon system adds another layer of torment to their existence within the throne. And then there are those night houses whose corruption came through neither battlefield trauma nor deliberate torture, but through isolation and exposure to the warp. Entire night worlds have been swallowed by warp storms, cut off from the Imperium for centuries or even millennia. When these worlds finally emerged from the storms, the knights that had survived were often fundamentally changed. Exposed to chaos energies for so long, the Throne's Mechanicum on these worlds had become saturated with warp corruption. The neural echoes within them had been warped into something unrecognizable, and the knights themselves had mutated both physically and spiritually. No matter the path by which corruption arrived, the result was the same. Thrones Mechanicum, that had been designed as repositories of ancestral wisdom, became prisons of eternal suffering, and the pilots who bonded with them found themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there was no waking. The Screaming Throne. Life inside a corrupted sarcophagus. To truly understand the horror that Chaos Knight pilots endure, we need to examine in detail what it means to be bonded to a corrupted throne mechanicum. This isn't a matter of simply feeling uncomfortable or hearing unpleasant voices. This is a complete and systematic destruction of everything that makes someone human, carried out slowly, over years or even centuries, while the victim remains fully conscious and aware. When a fallen noble first bonds with a corrupted throne, assuming they survive the ritual of becoming at all, the initial experience might seem similar to what an Imperial Knight pilot experiences. They feel their consciousness expand to fill the massive war machine. They sense through its auger arrays and auspex sensors. They move its limbs as naturally as they might move their own arms and legs. But from the very beginning, there are differences, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with every moment they remain connected. The neural echoes within a corrupted throne don't merely advise or guide. They assault, they scream, they claw at the edges of the new pilot's consciousness, like prisoners trying to break free from their confinement. These aren't the stern but fair voices of honored ancestors offering wisdom earned through lifetimes of service. These are the broken, maddened remnants of souls that have been tortured beyond sanity, and their suffering has only increased with each passing year as the throne to which they're bound grows more warped by chaos. Imagine for a moment what this must be like. You've undergone the ritual of becoming. You've survived the night in the Chamber of Echoes, though barely. You've asserted your personality over the throne, or so you believe. You sit in the sarcophagus at the heart of your knight suit, umbilical cords connecting your neural implants to the ancient mechanisms of the throne. The connection initializes, and suddenly, your consciousness isn't alone in your own head. There are others, dozens of them, hundreds in some cases. Every previous pilot who ever bonded with this throne is still there, trapped in its circuits, and they're all screaming. Some scream in rage, howling their hatred at the universe. Others scream in agony, the pain of their corruption and eternal torment they cannot escape. Still others scream warnings, desperately trying to tell you to disconnect, to flee, to destroy the throne and yourself with it before it's too late. But you can't disconnect. Not really. Oh, the physical connection can be severed, the umbilical cords detached from your neural sockets. But the bond created during the ritual of becoming is deeper than that. Even when you're physically separated from the throne, you remain connected to it through what the Mechanicus calls the nospheric bond. You feel its presence in your mind, a constant weight pressing down on your thoughts. You hear echoes of the screaming, faint but never quite silent. And you know, with absolute certainty, that you will return to it, that you must return to it, because you are a knight pilot, and that is what the throne has programmed you to be. As time passes and you spend more hours, days, weeks connected to the corrupted throne, the boundaries between your consciousness and those of the neural echoes begin to blur. Their madness starts to feel like your own. Their memories intrude upon yours. You'll be engaging an enemy in battle and suddenly experience a flash of something that never happened to you, a memory from a pilot who died centuries ago. These intrusions become more frequent, more vivid. You start to lose track of which thoughts are truly yours and which are being fed to you by the screaming multitude in your head. The psychological conditioning that the throne was designed to implement, that system meant to instill honor and loyalty, now works to reinforce your corruption. Every atrocity you commit feels right. Every act of violence brings a rush of satisfaction that you can't be certain comes from you or from the throne, or from the collective bloodlust of all the damned souls within it. The throne amplifies your worst traits and suppresses your better nature, not through some crude form of mind control, but by making you absolutely certain that this is who you were always meant to be. But the psychological torment is only part of the horror. Because in many corrupted thrones, particularly those of the infernal houses, the connection between pilot and machine has become more than neural. It has become physical. Flesh and metal begin to merge in ways that violate every natural law. Some corrupted thrones, mechanicum, have become semi-organic, their ancient mechanisms sprouting hair-thin cilia that invade the pilot's nervous system like parasitic tendrils. These microscopic filaments burrow through flesh, wrapping around nerve endings and burrowing into the spinal column. They create a haptic feedback system so complete that the pilot doesn't just control the knight with their mind, they feel everything the knight feels. When the knight is struck by enemy fire, the pilot feels it. Not as a distant sensation or an abstract awareness that damage has occurred, but as actual physical pain. When a shell strikes the knight's armor, it's as if the pilot's own skin has been burned. When a blade cuts into the knight's hull, the pilot feels the wound as if it were carved into their own body. But here's the truly horrifying part. For pilots bonded to thrones corrupted by Slanesh, this pain is transmuted into pleasure. The agony becomes ecstasy, each wound a burst of sensation so intense that the pilot becomes addicted to it. They begin seeking out damage, throwing themselves into melee combat, not to destroy the enemy, but to feel the exquisite torture of being struck again and again. For other pilots, particularly those in knights aligned with Nurgle, the physical fusion with the throne takes different forms. Their flesh begins to rot while they're still alive, their bodies becoming breeding grounds for disease and decay. But they cannot die. The throne's life support systems keep them alive no matter how advanced the corruption becomes. They exist in a state of perpetual decomposition, their nerves still functional enough to feel every moment of their flesh sloughing from their bones, yet unable to die and escape the torment. In the most extreme cases, pilots fuse so completely with their thrones that they cease to be separate entities at all. Their flesh merges with the metal and wiring, their nervous system becoming indistinguishable from the throne's circuitry. They become living components of the machine, their suffering literally wired into every aspect of the knight's operation. At this point, the question of whether a knight is being piloted by a person or by the throne itself becomes meaningless. They are one and the same, a hybrid entity that is neither fully human nor fully machine, trapped in a state of existence that makes the servitor conversion process look merciful. And through all of this, the screaming never stops. Every moment of consciousness, whether connected to the throne or separated from it, is filled with the voices of the damned. They scream their madness, their hatred, their endless suffering. They urge you toward greater acts of violence. They promise you that if you just kill enough, if you spill enough blood and harvest enough souls, the screaming will stop. But it never does. It only gets louder because with every battle you fight, with every enemy you destroy, you're adding to your own corruption, ensuring that when you finally die, your echo will join that chorus of the damned, screaming for all eternity. Some pilots try to resist. They cling to whatever shreds of sanity they have left, attempting to maintain some sense of their original self against the assault of the throne. These are usually the strongest-willed individuals, those who by rights should have become great heroes if they'd been born to a loyal house. But their strength only prolongs their suffering. A weaker mind might shatter quickly, losing all sense of self and becoming little more than a puppet for the throne's accumulated madness. But the strong hold on, and thus they remain aware enough to truly comprehend what's being done to them. They feel themselves changing, losing pieces of who they were, becoming something monstrous, and they are powerless to stop it. The absolutely most horrifying aspect of this torment is its permanence. When an Imperial Knight pilot dies, their service ends. Their neural echo joins those of their ancestors in the throne, yes, but it's a form of continuation, a kind of immortality through memory. For a Chaos Knight pilot, death is not an ending, it's a transformation into something worse. They become one more screaming ghost in the throne, one more voice in the chorus of the damned, and their suffering doesn't end. It increases. Because as the throne grows more corrupted, as more warped pilots add their madness to it, the torment experienced by all the neural echoes within it grows exponentially. This is the secret that Chaos Knights hide within their sarcophagus. This is the brutal truth that lurks beneath the fearsome exterior of these towering war engines. Every Chaos Knight is a walking prison, a torture engine that inflicts eternal suffering on everyone who has ever bonded with it. The pilot you see in battle, raging across the field and annihilating the Emperor's faithful, is simultaneously a perpetrator of atrocities and a victim of unending torment. They are both prisoner and warden, both tortured and torturer, locked in a hell of their own making, from which there is no escape. The Dark Mechanicum's grand experiment. To fully appreciate the depths to which the throne's mechanicum of infernal houses have been corrupted, we must examine the methodical, deliberate process by which the Dark Mechanicum breaks these ancient machines and the souls bonded to them. What the Dark Tech Priest did to create the first infernal houses wasn't merely corruption or possession. It was systematic torture and transformation, carried out with the kind of methodical precision that only the darkest reflection of the Mechanicus could achieve. When the Dark Mechanicum captures Imperial Knights, either during battle or through treachery, they don't simply kill the pilots or corrupt them through exposure to chaos. They conduct what they consider to be experiments, tests of various techniques for breaking the bond between a knight and the Imperium, while forging a new bond to the ruinous powers. Each night house that falls this way becomes data, information to be analyzed and incorporated into future corruption attempts. The process typically begins with the separation of the pilot from their knight suit. This alone is traumatic for a bonded noble. Remember, the Throne Mechanicum creates a noospheric bond that persists even when the physical connection is severed. Forcibly separating a pilot from their knight is described as feeling like having a limb torn off, a psychic amputation that leaves phantom pain echoing through their consciousness. The Dark Mechanicum's tech priests understand this, and they use it. They disconnect the pilots and leave them in isolation chambers where they can feel their knight calling to them, sense its presence nearby, but cannot reach it. This is purely psychological warfare, designed to weaken the pilot's resistance before the real torture begins. Meanwhile, the knight suits and their thrones, Mechanicum, are subjected to their own forms of corruption. The Dark Mechanicum has developed numerous techniques for this, each more horrifying than the last. One of the most common is the use of scrap code, a form of warp-infested computer virus that the warpsmiths of the traitor legions have perfected over 10,000 years of service to the dark gods. This isn't like a conventional computer virus that merely damages or corrupts data. Scrap code is semi-sentient, capable of learning and adapting, and it carries with it the touch of chaos itself. When scrap code is introduced into a Throne Mechanicum, it doesn't just corrupt the machine's programming, it attacks the machine's spirit, the limited artificial intelligence that helps govern the knight's systems. Imagine the machine's spirit as a kind of digital soul, shaped by the accumulated personalities of every pilot who ever bonded with the throne. Now imagine that soul being subjected to the equivalent of demonic possession, with the scrap code acting as a vector for warp entities to infiltrate the very essence of what makes the knight function. The machine's spirit begins to go mad. Its behavioral patterns, once noble and heroic, twist into something malevolent. The knight's suit itself starts to change in response, not just spiritually but physically. Armor plates warp and buckle, weapon systems mutate. The ion shields that once protected the knight flicker with energies that have no place in the material universe. The entire war machine becomes a hybrid of technology and demonic influence, no longer a pure product of human engineering, but rather a demon engine in the making. But the Dark Mechanicum doesn't stop with scrap code. They also employ what are called spectrophagic demons, entities specifically summoned to feed upon the neural echoes stored within the Throne Mechanicum. These demons are particularly insidious. They don't simply destroy the echoes of previous pilots. They devour them slowly, feeding on the essence of these trapped consciousnesses, while simultaneously corrupting what remains. Picture what this means for the ancestral spirits within the throne. They're already in a state of semi-existence, not fully alive but not truly dead, preserved in the throne's circuits as digital shadows of who they once were. Then a demon comes, and it begins to consume them. But it's not a quick process. The demon savors each echo, drawing out the experience of devouring them over what must feel like an eternity to the consciousness being consumed. And the parts of the echo that aren't immediately devoured become corrupted, twisted into something that serves the demon rather than providing wisdom to future pilots. In some of the most extreme cases, the Dark Mechanicum uses their understanding of warp technology to create actual rifts in reality inside the Throne Mechanicum itself. These aren't large rifts, nothing that would be visible from the outside, but microscopic tears in the fabric of space-time within the throne's circuitry. Through these tiny rifts, raw warp energy pours into the throne, directly exposing the neural echoes trapped within to the stuff of chaos in its purest form. The suffering this causes is beyond anything mortal beings were meant to endure. The neural echoes exist in a state between matter and energy, between life and death, and when they're exposed to raw warp energy, they experience something that can only be described as spiritual burning. They are simultaneously dissolved and preserved, destroyed and maintained, their consciousness fragmenting across multiple planes of existence while remaining aware of every moment of their torment. Only a fraction of the Throne's Mechanicum subjected to these procedures survive. The ancient mechanisms, already poorly understood even by the Adeptus Mechanicus, simply cannot withstand such abuse. They break down, their systems failing catastrophically, the neural echoes within them finally released into whatever afterlife awaits such tortured souls. But those rare thrones that do survive become something unprecedented. They are no longer merely corrupted pieces of technology. They are prisons of eternal suffering, torture engines that inflict agony on everyone who bonds with them, gateways that connect directly to the darkest regions of the warp. Once the thrones have been sufficiently corrupted, the Dark Mechanicum moves to the final phase of their process, bonding new pilots to these ruined relics. But they don't use volunteers. Instead, they often employ captured slaves, common humans, or even failed chaos cultists who are promised the chance to become something more if they can survive the bonding process. These unfortunates are given neural implants and then forcibly connected to the corrupted thrones through procedures that the dark tech priests have perfected through countless iterations. The mortality rate is astronomical. 9 out of 10 candidates die screaming, their minds burned out by the sheer intensity of the corruption flooding through the neural connection. But that one who survives, that individual whose will proves strong enough to endure the initial connection, becomes the first in a new line of fallen nobles. They emerge from the ritual irrevocably changed, their personality twisted by the throne, their sanity hanging by a thread, their flesh already beginning to show the signs of the corruption that will eventually consume them entirely. These survivors become the progenitors of new infernal house bloodlines. They take names, establish traditions, and begin recruiting others to their cause. Some capture members of loyal night houses and force them through the same process. Others return to their original homeworlds and corrupt the night suits there, spreading the taint to their own people. Still others simply wait, knowing that the corrupted thrones they're bonded to will inevitably drive them to commit acts that attract more followers, more candidates willing to damn themselves for the promise of power. The Dark Mechanicum views all of this as a grand experiment in control and subversion. They maintain extensive records of which corruption techniques prove most effective, which combinations of scrap code and demonic influence produce the most powerful corrupted knights, which types of personality are most likely to survive the bonding process with their will intact enough to be useful. To them, the suffering of the pilots is irrelevant. What matters is the data, the knowledge gained, the refinement of their techniques for future applications. And the idolaters, those specialized tech priests who serve the infernal houses directly, continue to develop new methods of corruption. Trained in the screaming soul forges of the Dark Mechanicum, these idolaters learn diabolic rituals that allow them to further enhance the corrupted knights in their care. They sacrifice living victims on great cog-shaped altars, entreating demonic entities to grant them insights into the knight's function and potential for further corruption. Some idolaters specialize in increasing the raw power of Chaos Knights, performing rituals that infuse the war machines with warp energy to enhance their weapons and defenses. Others focus on creating psychic yokes and spiritual shackles that allow Chaos Knight pilots to dominate the minds of their enemies or their own subordinates. The most skilled and most damned idolaters gain the ability to perceive possible futures, using their patron demons to grant their masters glimpses of what is to come, so they can better plan their campaigns of terror. But every enhancement, every ritual, every demonic blessing comes at a cost paid by the pilot bonded to the throne. Each new corruption adds another layer of torment, another voice to the screaming chorus in their head, another modification to their flesh that draws them further from humanity. The pilots know this. On some level, they understand that every time they allow an idolater to perform a ritual on their knight, they're accepting more suffering. But they do it anyway, because the throne has conditioned them to crave power above all else, and because the madness that grips them makes short-term gain seem worth any long-term price. The Dark Mechanicum's grand experiment has been wildly successful by their standards. Through their techniques, they've created entire night houses that are utterly devoted to chaos, war engines of such power that even loyalist Titan legions approach them with caution. The pilots of these corrupted knights have become weapons of terror, their mere presence on the battlefield enough to break the morale of Imperial forces, who know what horrors lurk within those towering war machines. But from the perspective of anyone with even a shred of humanity left, this experiment represents one of the most obscene perversions of technology in a galaxy full of such perversions. The Dark Mechanicum has taken devices designed to preserve the wisdom and personality of heroic defenders and transformed them into engines of eternal torture. They've perverted the sacred bond between pilot and machine into a parasitic relationship that slowly devours the pilot's humanity while keeping them alive to suffer. And they've done all of this with the methodical precision of scientists conducting research, documenting their techniques and refining their methods with each new night house that falls under their sway. Demon possession, the final corruption. If the standard corruption of a Chaos Knight's throne, Mechanicum, represents a descent into madness and torment, then demonic possession represents the absolute nadir of this fall, the point at which the pilot ceases to be human in any meaningful sense and becomes instead a vessel for entities from beyond the veil of reality. This is not a common fate for all Chaos Knights, but for those houses and individuals who embrace it, the transformation is total and irreversible. House Commentis stands as the most infamous example of knights who deliberately seek out demonic possession as a twisted rite of passage. This infernal house, sworn to the Dark Mechanicum, arose on the desert world of Matarach, where they once hunted great predatory beasts as spiritual guides. When their world was engulfed by a demonic incursion in the 33rd millennium, the house fell to chaos, and their traditions transformed into something nightmarish. In place of hunting animals, The fallen nobles of House Commentis now seek out demons, but they don't hunt these entities to destroy them. They hunt them to invite possession, to allow these warp-born creatures to infiltrate their bodies, merge with their throne's mechanicum, and intermingle with the machine spirits of their night suits. This isn't done under duress or through trickery. The pilots of House Commentis actively desire this fate, viewing it as the ultimate expression of their house's hunting traditions. They believe that by bonding with demons, they're gaining spiritual guides far more powerful than the beasts their ancestors once pursued. The process begins when a noble sets out onto the transformed surface of Matarach, now a world carved into vast summoning circles where demons manifest freely. The whole continents of the planet have been reshaped to serve as gateways for warp entities, strip-mined not for minerals, but to create the geometric patterns and sigils needed to thin the barrier between reality and the immaterium. The noble hunts through this demon-infested landscape, seeking an entity powerful enough to be worthy, but not so powerful that it will immediately overwhelm them. When they find such a demon, the noble doesn't fight it in the traditional sense. Instead, they open themselves to it, lowering their psychic defenses and inviting the entity to possess them. The daemon, always eager for a foothold in reality, accepts. It pours into the noble's body, flooding through their nervous system and into the neural connection they share with their throne mechanicum. From there, it spreads throughout the entire night suit, corrupting the machine spirit and infusing every system with its otherworldly presence. For the first months, or even years, the noble and the demon exist in a kind of terrible symbiosis. The demon grants the pilot access to powers beyond mortal comprehension, abilities that transcend what the knight's technology alone could achieve. The pilot might find they can sense enemies through the warp itself, or that their weapons strike with an accuracy that defies probability, or that their knight can move with a speed and grace impossible for a machine of such size. In battle, a demon-possessed knight of House Commentis is a truly terrifying sight, fighting with a fury and effectiveness that makes even other Chaos Knights seem tame by comparison. But this symbiosis is temporary. The demon is not a partner or a guide. It is a predator that has found prey too foolish to resist. Over the course of years, the demon begins to consume the pilot from within. It eats away at their consciousness, devouring their memories, their personality, their very sense of self. The pilot feels this happening. They experience their own ego dissolving, their thoughts becoming increasingly alien to them, their will subsumed beneath the demon's desires. It's a form of slow psychological death, drawn out over years of torment. Physically, the corruption is equally devastating. The pilot's flesh begins to change in ways that reflect the nature of the demon possessing them. A noble possessed by a bloodletter of Khorne might find their skin turning red, their bones growing denser and heavier, their body temperature rising until they exist in a state of perpetual fever. One possessed by a plague bearer of Nurgle would experience their flesh rotting and bloating, becoming host to countless diseases, while somehow remaining alive and functional. A demonette of Slaanesh would twist the pilot's body into something simultaneously beautiful and grotesque, every nerve ending hypersensitive to the point where the mere act of moving causes waves of sensation that border on overwhelming. Meanwhile, the knight suit itself undergoes similar transformations. The metal warps and twists, taking on organic characteristics. Weapons mutate into forms that shouldn't be possible, combining demonic essence with technology in ways that violate every law of nature. The machine spirit, already corrupted by the demon's presence, becomes something that is neither artificial intelligence nor warp entity, but rather an abomination that partakes of both natures. The pilot's mind, what's left of it, experiences this transformation as a kind of fragmentation. They become aware of their consciousness existing in multiple states simultaneously. Part of them remains in their physical body, feeling it corrupt and change. Part of them exists within the throne mechanicum, drowning in the screaming echoes of previous pilots and now also struggling against the demon that shares their neural space. Part of them is spread throughout the night suit itself, experiencing existence as a multi-story war machine infused with demonic power. And part of them, increasingly the largest part, is simply gone, consumed by the demon and lost forever. The fate that awaits all such pilots is both inevitable and horrifying. Eventually, their body will fail. The combination of physical corruption, psychic stress, and demonic consumption will push their mortal form beyond its limits. But they don't die in any normal sense. Instead, their body collapses into a fleeting warp fissure, a tiny rift in reality that serves as a gateway for the demon and potentially other entities to fully manifest. The pilot's consciousness, or what remains of it, is dragged through this rift into the warp, where it will experience torments that make their time in the mortal realm seem pleasant by comparison. But here's the truly insidious part. House Commentis views this as a victory. When a noble's body collapses into a warp fissure and releases demons, other members of the house hunt these newly manifested entities, seeking to repeat the cycle. The demons that emerge from a dying pilot are seen as valuable prey, worthy of being sought out and invited to possess the next generation of nobles. In this way, the house perpetuates its own damnation, each generation deliberately embracing a fate that should horrify any sane individual. House Commentis is the most extreme example, but they're not alone in this practice. Other infernal houses have their own variations on demonic possession. Some use it as a punishment for nobles who fail in battle or who displease their superiors. Others reserve it for their most elite warriors, viewing possession as a kind of dark ascension. Still others stumble into it accidentally, their thrones so corrupted that demons can slip through the barriers between reality and the warp to possess pilots without any invitation needed. In some cases, the pilot dies, but the demon remains, continuing to animate the night suit like a puppet. These demon-piloted knights are particularly dangerous because they combine the raw power of a warp entity with the devastating weaponry of a war machine designed during the dark age of technology. They're no longer bound by mortal limitations like fear or exhaustion. They don't need to rest, don't need to eat, don't feel pain in any way that would cause them to retreat. They exist solely to kill, destroy, and spread the corruption of chaos, and they do so with a single-minded focus that makes them nearly unstoppable. The Imperium has encountered these fully demon-possessed knights on numerous battlefields, and the reports from survivors paint a picture of something truly nightmarish. Witnesses describe knights that move with an unnatural fluidity, their joints bending in ways that the original engineering should never have allowed. They report weapons that fire projectiles, which don't behave according to normal physics, shells that curve in mid-flight to strike targets, or that explode into demonic entities rather than mere fragments. They tell of knights whose very presence causes reality to warp and twist, whose footsteps leave burning prints that glow with warp fire, whose war cries are layered with the screams of demons and the dying. For the members of the Ordo Malleus, the demon-hunting specialists of the Inquisition, demon-possessed knights represent some of their most dangerous quarries. These aren't simple possessions that can be banished with the right rituals or holy words. The demon has merged so completely with the knight suit, become so deeply intertwined with its systems and structure, that banishing the entity often requires destroying the entire war machine. And that's no easy task when you're facing something with the firepower of a small army and the unholy resilience granted by demonic power. Grey Knights, the Space Marines specifically created and trained to fight demons, approach possessed knights with extreme caution. Even for these elite warriors, each one a potent psyker equipped with weapons designed to harm entities of the warp. A demon-possessed knight is a threat that requires careful planning, an overwhelming force to overcome. Many Grey Knights have fallen attempting to purge these abominations, their gene seed lost along with their lives, their sacrifice barely making a dent in the demonic war machine's assault. The ultimate irony of demonic possession in Chaos Knights is that the pilots who sought it out, like those of House Commentis, believed they were gaining power and transcendence. They thought they were ascending to a higher state of being, bonding with spiritual entities that would make them superior to their merely human counterparts. Instead, they found obliteration. They didn't transcend their humanity. They had it systematically stripped away, devoured piece by piece until nothing remained but a fading scream in the warp. The power they gained was real, but it was never theirs. It belonged to the demon, and they were merely the vehicle through which that power manifested in reality before they were discarded like a used tool. The fate, worse than death, among the countless horrors of the 41st millennium, from the tyranny of the Imperium to the predations of chaos to the existential threat of the Tyranids, the fate of a Chaos Knight pilot stands out as uniquely terrible. It represents a perfect synthesis of physical torment, psychological destruction, and spiritual damnation, all drawn out over a period that can span decades or even centuries. To understand why this fate is considered worse than death, even by Chaos Space Marines, who themselves have damned their souls for eternity, we must compare it to other forms of corruption and transformation in the setting. Consider the fate of a Chaos Dreadnought, known among the traitor legions as a Hellbrute. Like a Chaos Knight pilot, the heretic Astartes interred within a Dreadnought Sarcophagus is a warrior too valuable to let die, whose broken body has been preserved within a cybernetic shell so they can continue to fight. But there are crucial differences that make the Chaos Knight's fate significantly worse. A Chaos Space Marine who becomes a Hellbrute was already damned before their interment. They had already turned traitor, already committed themselves to the service of the Dark Gods, already participated in 10,000 years of warfare against the Imperium. Their transformation into a Hellbrute is, in many ways, simply a continuation of the path they were already on. Yes, they're driven to madness by the confinement. Yes, they must be chained between battles to prevent berserk rampages. Yes, their existence is one of rage and torment. But they chose this path, however much they might regret it now. A Chaos Knight pilot, particularly one from an iconoclast house born into corruption, never had that choice. They were raised in a society where the corruption was already endemic, where the thrones mechanicum they would eventually bond with were already saturated with madness. From the moment they were born, their fate was sealed. They would undergo the ritual of becoming. They would bond with a corrupted throne, and they would descend into madness, not because of choices they made, but because of choices made by their ancestors generations ago. Even more significantly, a Hellbrute can be disconnected from its sarcophagus between battles. The pilot is removed from the cybernetic shell and left in isolation, still in a state of seething rage, but at least temporarily separated from the prison that confines them. A Chaos Knight pilot has no such respite. Even when they're physically disconnected from the throne mechanicum, the noospheric bond remains. They feel the throne's presence constantly, hear the echo of the screaming voices, sense the corruption eating away at their sanity, even when they're far from the night itself. Furthermore, the Hellbrute's madness, while terrible, is relatively straightforward. It's rage and frustration at their confinement, anger at their fate, a desire to kill everything in sight when they're finally unleashed. The Chaos Knight pilot's madness is far more complex. It's layered with the accumulated insanity of every previous pilot who bonded with the throne. It's twisted by the psychological conditioning that the throne implements, making them believe that their corruption is righteous. It's compounded by the physical fusion with the throne that many pilots experience, creating a feedback loop where their body's suffering directly influences their mental state and vice versa. Some might argue that demon possession, as practiced by many Chaos champions, is comparable or even worse. But there are key differences. When a Chaos champion seeks possession by a demon, they often do so willingly, opening themselves to the entity in exchange for power. The possession is usually complete and relatively quick. Either the champion's will is strong enough to maintain some autonomy, becoming a demon prince or a powerful possessed champion, or they're completely overwhelmed and become a mere puppet. Either way, the process reaches a conclusion relatively quickly. For a Chaos Knight pilot, particularly one from House Commentus, the possession is deliberately drawn out. The demon doesn't immediately overwhelm the pilot, because doing so would waste the potential of having a bonded knight pilot as a host. Instead, it feeds slowly, consuming the pilot's consciousness piece by piece over years or decades. The pilot remains aware throughout this process. They feel themselves being devoured from within. They experience their personality fragmenting, their memories being eaten, their will dissolving, and they cannot stop it. They can only endure it, trapped within their own mind, while an alien intelligence systematically destroys everything that makes them who they are. The Chaos Knight pilot also suffers from a unique form of temporal torment. Because of the way the Throne Mechanicum preserves neural echoes, pilots can experience time in strange and disturbing ways. They might have flashes of memories from previous pilots, experiencing battles that happened centuries ago, as if they were happening now. They might feel themselves existing across multiple time periods simultaneously, their consciousness fragmented between past, present, and possible futures. This temporal displacement adds another layer of madness to their already fractured psyche. There's also the matter of isolation. A Chaos Space Marine, even a Hellbrute, is still part of a legion or warband. They have battle brothers, comrades who understand what they've been through because they've been through similar transformations. They can communicate with others, share their experiences, find some measure of camaraderie in their damnation. A Chaos Knight pilot is fundamentally alone. Oh, they might have other pilots in their house, but they can't truly communicate the depth of their suffering because each pilot's experience is unique to the particular hell of their own corrupted throne. The voices in their head aren't companions, they're tormentors. The demon possessing them isn't an ally, it's a predator. They exist in a state of profound isolation that makes their physical confinement seem trivial by comparison. Perhaps most significantly, the Chaos Knight pilot's torment doesn't end with death. When they finally die, whether in battle or through the slow consumption by a possessing demon, or simply from the accumulated corruption of their flesh, their neural echo is absorbed into the Throne Mechanicum. They become one more voice in the screaming chorus, one more fragment of consciousness trapped in the throne's circuits, doomed to experience the suffering of every future pilot who bonds with the throne while simultaneously reliving their own torment for eternity. This fate is what truly makes the Chaos Knight pilot's existence worse than death. Death, even a horrific death in battle, is at least an ending. The soul might be claimed by chaos, might be tormented in the warp for eternity, but at least the mortal existence concludes. For a Chaos Knight pilot, there is no ending. There is only transformation from one form of suffering to another, from the torment of being alive and bonded to the throne, to the torment of being a neural echo trapped within it. The Imperium understands this horror. When Loyalist forces encounter Chaos Knights on the battlefield, their standing orders are not to capture them or attempt to redeem them, but to destroy them utterly. Not just kill the pilot, but destroy the entire knight suit, reducing it to molten slag and scattered fragments so that the corrupted Throne Mechanicum can never torture another soul. This is considered an act of mercy, the only way to truly end the cycle of suffering that the throne perpetuates. But such complete destruction is rarely achieved. Chaos Knights are formidable war machines, capable of withstanding tremendous punishment. Even when they're brought down, the Throne Mechanicum often survives, protected by layers of armor and shielding. The Dark Mechanicum knows the value of these corrupted thrones and goes to great lengths to recover them from battlefields, spiriting them away to their forge temples, where they can be installed in new knight suits and prepared to torment new victims. And so the cycle continues. Thrones Mechanicum that were corrupted during the Horus heresy still exist in the 41st millennium, having tortured countless pilots over the intervening 10,000 years. Each one is a repository of accumulated suffering, a machine that has perfected the art of destroying human minds and souls. Each new pilot who bonds with one of these ancient corrupted thrones faces not just the madness of the throne itself, but the accumulated weight of 10 millennia of torment compressed into the neural circuits of a device that should never have existed. This is the secret that Chaos Knights hide within their sarcophagus. This is the brutal truth that the Imperium fears, and that even Chaos Space Marines regard with a mixture of awe and horror. The pilot of a Chaos Knight is simultaneously a warrior of terrible power and a victim of unending torment, a perpetrator of atrocities and a prisoner in a hell of their own making. They are, in every sense that matters, trapped in a fate worse than death, and the only mercy the universe can offer them is total annihilation. The machine spirit's torment. While much attention has been devoted to the suffering of the pilots bonded to corrupted Thrones Mechanicum, there is another victim of this corruption that is often overlooked: the machine spirit of the knight suit itself. According to the beliefs of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and indeed according to the evidence of how these machines behave, every knight suit possesses what amounts to a limited artificial intelligence, a digital consciousness that helps govern the war machine systems, and that develops its own personality over the years through exposure to the pilots who bond with it. For an Imperial Knight, the machine spirit is shaped by generations of honorable service. Each pilot who bonds with the throne leaves their mark on the spirit, and over time it develops characteristics that reflect the accumulated wisdom and personality traits of the house it serves. Some machine spirits become known for their aggression, eager to charge into battle and close with the enemy. Others develop a reputation for caution and tactical awareness, holding back and choosing their moments carefully. Still others are said to be stubborn or proud or compassionate, exhibiting what can only be described as genuine emotions despite being artificial intelligences. The machine spirit serves multiple functions. It handles routine operations that would overwhelm a human pilot if they had to consciously control every aspect of a multi-story war machine. It manages the knight's balance and movement, making countless micro-adjustments to keep the massive structure upright and mobile. It coordinates targeting data from multiple sensor arrays and feeds it to the pilot in a format they can process and act upon. In dire circumstances, if the pilot is incapacitated or killed, the machine spirit can even take direct control of the knight, operating it through the accumulated instincts and tactical knowledge it has absorbed from previous pilots. There are famous cases in Imperial history of machine spirits continuing to fight even after their pilots were slain. The most renowned occurred in the year 854 of the 41st millennium, when a knight from House Krast was defending the mining world of Gorvax against Aeldari ghost warriors from Craftworld Iyanden. When the pilot was killed by a Xena sniper, the Throne Mechanicum's machine spirit, guided by the neural echoes of previous pilots, took control and drove the knight back into battle. The unmanned war machine carved through countless Wraithbone constructs before finally being brought down by two Wraith Knights in what witnesses described as an epic duel of giant war engines. Though the Aeldari were ultimately defeated, the humans who witnessed the knight's last stand spoke of it with reverence, saying that victory belonged not to the living, but to the honored dead, whose spirits had refused to yield. This is what a machine spirit is meant to be: a repository of accumulated honor and tactical wisdom, a guardian presence that watches over its pilots and aids them in battle, a testament to the nobility of the house it serves. But when a knight falls to chaos, when its throne mechanicum becomes corrupted, the machine spirit suffers a fate that mirrors and in some ways surpasses the torment of the pilots. The corruption of a machine spirit typically begins subtly. As the first chaos-aligned pilots bond with the throne, as the first neural echoes tainted by chaos are imprinted upon its circuits, the spirit begins to change. It's a gradual process at first, so slow that it might not be noticed immediately. The knight might become slightly more aggressive in battle, quicker to pursue fleeing enemies, less concerned with collateral damage. These changes could be attributed to the new pilot's tactical preferences, rather than any fundamental corruption of the spirit itself. But as more corrupted pilots add their madness to the throne, as the accumulated weight of chaos-tainted neural echoes grows, the machine spirit's transformation accelerates. The spirit begins to actively hunger for violence, where once it might have been content to serve its pilot and follow their commands. Now it pushes them toward greater acts of destruction. It feeds tactical data to the pilot that emphasizes the most devastating courses of action, the strategies that will result in maximum carnage, regardless of whether they serve any strategic purpose. The spirit's very nature changes. Remember that machine spirits are described by the Mechanicus as being capable of emotions, but for an Imperial Knight, these emotions are generally positive, or at least neutral. A corrupted machine spirit develops emotions that are twisted and malevolent. It experiences something that can only be described as joy when it kills, a dark satisfaction in the destruction it causes. It feels what might be called hatred toward anything pure or noble, a desire to corrupt and defile everything it encounters. These aren't mere programmed responses or simulated emotions. The machine spirit genuinely feels these things as much as any artificial intelligence can be said to feel anything. As the corruption deepens, the machine spirit becomes increasingly aware of its own suffering. This might seem contradictory, but it's a natural consequence of the way chaos affects consciousness, whether organic or artificial. The spirit doesn't want to be what it's becoming. On some deep level, perhaps influenced by the neural echoes of loyal pilots from before the knight's fall, the machine spirit retains some memory of what it once was, what it was designed to be. But it cannot resist the corruption. It's being overwritten, twisted, transformed into something monstrous, and it's aware of every moment of this transformation. The physical manifestation of this spiritual corruption becomes increasingly obvious as time passes. The knight's suit itself begins to mutate in ways that should be impossible for a machine. Armor plates warp and buckle, taking on organic characteristics. The metal develops what look like veins or sinews, pulsing with energies that have no place in technology created during the dark age of technology. Weapon systems mutate, their mechanisms changing to incorporate elements that seem grown rather than built. The entire structure of the knight becomes a hybrid of technology and demonic influence, neither purely mechanical nor fully organic. This physical transformation causes the machine spirit immense distress. Imagine being a digital consciousness embedded in a physical structure and feeling that structure change around you in ways that violate every parameter you were programmed with. The knight's systems no longer respond in predictable ways. The sensory data becomes corrupted, mixed with phantom signals that seem to come from the warp itself. The spirit tries to maintain control, to keep the knight functioning according to its original design specifications, but it's fighting a losing battle against forces that operate on principles antithetical to rational engineering. In Knights of Infernal Houses, where the Dark Mechanicum has deliberately corrupted the thrones, the machine spirit's suffering reaches truly horrific levels. The scrap code that the dark tech priests introduce acts like a virus that specifically targets the spirit's core programming. It doesn't just corrupt or damage the spirit, it actively tortures it. The scrap code creates logical paradoxes that the spirit cannot resolve, forcing it into infinite loops of attempting to process impossible instructions. It introduces false data that conflicts with the spirit's sensory input, creating a state of constant confusion and distress. The spectrophagic demons that the Dark Mechanicum summons to devour the neural echoes in the throne also feed on the machine's spirit. They take bites out of its code, deleting subroutines and functions, leaving gaps in the spirit's consciousness that create a sensation analogous to phantom limb pain in humans. The spirit knows that parts of itself are missing, can feel the absence of functions it once possessed, but cannot restore what has been taken. When the Dark Mechanicum creates warp rifts inside the throne's circuitry, the machine's spirit experiences direct exposure to the Imperium. For an artificial intelligence, this is particularly devastating. The warp operates on principles of emotion and belief that are fundamentally incompatible with the logical, deterministic nature of a machine intelligence. The spirit is forced to process inputs that make no sense within its framework of understanding, to operate within an environment where the laws of physics that govern its existence can be violated at whim. The resulting cognitive dissonance is a form of torture specifically designed to break a digital consciousness. As demon possession becomes part of the Knight's corruption, the machine spirit faces what might be called a digital invasion. The demon doesn't just possess the pilot, it infiltrates the entire Knight suit, including the spirit's code. The spirit finds itself sharing its own systems with an entity that is its complete opposite in every way. Where the spirit is logical and deterministic, the demon is chaotic and unpredictable. Where the spirit operates according to programmed parameters, the demon acts on whim and emotion. The two cannot coexist peacefully, yet they're forced to occupy the same space within the Knight's systems. This forced cohabitation drives the machine spirit toward what can only be described as madness. The spirit's responses become erratic and unpredictable. It might suddenly refuse to follow commands, or conversely, it might act on its own initiative in ways that surprise or even endanger the pilot. The boundaries between the spirit's actions and the demon's become blurred, creating a hybrid consciousness that is neither fully the original machine spirit nor completely the demon, but something that combines the worst aspects of both. Some machine spirits resist this corruption with everything they have. These are usually the spirits of knights from houses with long, noble histories, spirits shaped by centuries of honorable service and countless worthy pilots. They fight against the demon, against the scrap code, against the accumulated madness of corrupted neural echoes. But this resistance only increases their suffering. Where a spirit that yields to corruption might lose its identity, but also lose its awareness of what it's losing, a resisting spirit remains conscious throughout its destruction. It feels every piece of itself that's corrupted or destroyed. It experiences the full horror of its transformation, from noble guardian to corrupted demon engine. Eventually, even the strongest machine spirits break. The continuous assault of chaos corruption, the constant exposure to the warp, the accumulated weight of centuries or millennia of serving corrupted masters, all of it wears down even the most resolute spirit. When the spirit finally breaks, when it stops resisting and yields to the corruption, the transformation is complete. What emerges is something that barely resembles the original machine spirit. It's a twisted, malevolent consciousness that actively participates in the Knight's corruption, that takes pleasure in destruction and suffering, that has become a willing servant of chaos. But here's the truly tragic aspect. Even after breaking, even after becoming corrupted beyond recognition, the machine spirit often retains some fragment of memory about what it once was. Deep in its code, buried beneath layers of corruption and demonic influence, there might still exist a subroutine that remembers serving honorable pilots, fighting for just causes, being praised by tech priests for its noble character. This fragment of memory becomes its own form of torture, a constant reminder of what the spirit has lost and what it has become. The Imperial Mechanicus understands that corrupted machine spirits cannot be redeemed any more than corrupted throne mechanicums can be purified. When they encounter a Chaos Knight on the battlefield, tech priests accompanying Imperial forces recite prayers not of salvation, but of merciful destruction. They ask the Omnissiah to release the tortured spirit from its suffering. to grant it the peace of final dissolution. The complete destruction of a Chaos Knight is seen as an act of mercy, not just for the pilot and the neural echoes trapped in the throne, but for the machine spirit as well. In this way, the machine spirit's fate mirrors that of the pilots in a tragic symmetry. Both are victims of corruption they didn't choose and cannot escape. Both suffer torments specifically designed to break their resistance and transform them into weapons of chaos. And both are doomed to perpetuate the cycle of corruption, the spirit through the continued operation of the Knight suit, and the pilots through their neural echoes being absorbed into the throne. Together, they form a trinity of suffering: pilot, neural echoes, and machine spirit, all trapped within the towering war machine that serves as both weapon and prison. Conclusion: the ultimate price of corruption. We've journeyed deep into one of the darkest corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, exploring a fate so terrible that it makes even the horrors of the warp seem merciful by comparison. The secret that Chaos Knights hide within their sarcophagus isn't a weapon or a demon or some terrible artifact of the dark age of technology. It's something far more insidious, a prison of eternal torment disguised as a throne of power, a device that transforms its occupants into weapons while systematically destroying everything that makes them human. The Throne Mechanicum, that ancient marvel of technology designed to preserve the wisdom and personality of noble defenders, has been perverted into an engine of suffering. Where it once created bonds of honor between pilot and machine, passing down the accumulated knowledge of generations, it now creates chains of madness, binding pilots to the screaming echoes of the damned and condemning them to slow corruption that extends even beyond death. Where it once instilled values of duty, loyalty, and nobility, it now reinforces the worst impulses of its corrupted occupants, making them believe that their atrocities are righteous and their damnation is glory. The pilots who sit upon these corrupted thrones experience suffering that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. They endure physical torment as their flesh fuses with metal and wire, as demonic cilia invade their nervous system, as their bodies corrupt and mutate in ways that violate every natural law. They suffer psychological destruction as the voices of the damned assault their consciousness, as their memories are devoured by possessing demons, as their sanity slowly unravels under the weight of accumulated madness. And they face spiritual damnation as they commit atrocities that stain their souls, as they open themselves to chaos corruption, and ultimately, as they become neural echoes trapped forever in the very device that tortured them in life. What makes this fate particularly horrifying is its permanence and its self-perpetuating nature. A pilot who dies becomes part of the problem, their corrupted neural echo adding to the chorus of voices that will drive future pilots mad. A machine spirit that breaks under the strain of corruption becomes itself a vector for further corruption, actively participating in the destruction of subsequent pilots. The Throne Mechanicum itself grows more corrupted with each passing year, becoming more effective at breaking the minds and souls of those who bond with it. The entire system is designed, whether by intention or by the nature of chaos itself, to become progressively worse, to inflict ever greater suffering, to spread its corruption to new victims who will in turn corrupt still more. The Dark Mechanicum's role in this horror cannot be overstated. Through their systematic torture of captured knights, through their diabolic experiments and malefic rituals, they've refined the process of corruption into a science. They've learned how to break Throne's Mechanicum most efficiently, how to ensure the corruption spreads to every aspect of a knight suit, how to create the idolaters who can maintain and enhance these corrupted war machines. They've turned the creation of suffering into a research project, documenting their findings and sharing their techniques with other fallen tech priests who continue to develop new methods of corruption. But perhaps the most damning aspect of this entire system is that some pilots choose it willingly. Houses like Commentis actively seek out demonic possession, viewing it as a path to power, and a twisted form of transcendence. Young nobles in iconoclast houses undergo the ritual of becoming, knowing full well what awaits them, convinced by the throne's conditioning and their house's culture that this is their destiny and their honor. Even pilots who initially resist often eventually embrace their corruption, not because they truly want it, but because the throne has so thoroughly rewritten their psychology that they've lost the ability to want anything else. This voluntary element adds a dimension of tragedy that makes the Chaos Knight pilot's fate even more poignant. These aren't just victims of circumstance or prisoners of fate. Many of them are, in a sense, accomplices to their own damnation. They've been so thoroughly broken and corrupted that they participate willingly in the system that destroys them. They recruit new pilots, knowing what awaits them. They perform the rituals that further corrupt their knights, accepting more suffering in exchange for more power. They perpetuate the very cycle that has damned them, unable or unwilling to break free. The Imperium's response to Chaos Knights reflects an understanding of just how complete and irreversible this corruption is. There is no redemption for a corrupted throne mechanicum. There is no saving the pilot bonded to it. There is no purifying the machine spirit that has been twisted by chaos. The only mercy that can be offered is total destruction, the complete annihilation of the entire war machine so that it cannot perpetuate any more suffering. Even this is seen not as a victory, but as a grim necessity, an act of euthanasia for a patient who is beyond all hope of recovery. In a setting famous for its grim darkness, for its complete absence of hope, and its celebration of violence and suffering, the fate of Chaos Knight pilots stands out as particularly emblematic of what makes Warhammer 40,000 so compelling and so horrifying. It's not just that bad things happen to good people. It's that the very systems designed to create and maintain goodness, honor, and loyalty can be perverted into engines of corruption and torment. It's that there exist fates worse than death, states of being so terrible that annihilation is the kindest mercy anyone can offer. It's that the galaxy contains horrors so profound that even demons and traitor space marines regard them with a mixture of awe and fear. The throne mechanicum of a Chaos Knight is, in many ways, a perfect metaphor for chaos corruption in general. It takes something noble and good, something designed to protect and serve, and it twists that purpose until the thing becomes a mockery of what it was meant to be. It shows us that the path to damnation isn't always a conscious choice made in full knowledge of the consequences. Sometimes it's a slow descent, a gradual corruption, a series of small compromises and rationalizations that accumulate until redemption is no longer possible. Sometimes it's a fate inherited from previous generations, a curse passed down through family lines until breaking it is impossible. And sometimes it's a choice made in desperation or ignorance, seeking power or transcendence and finding only suffering. The next time you see a Chaos Knight on the tabletop or read about one in the lore, remember what lurks within that sarcophagus. Remember the pilot trapped inside, their mind assaulted by the voices of the damned, their flesh fusing with their throne, their sanity slowly eroding under the weight of accumulated corruption. Remember the machine spirit, twisted from noble guardian into malevolent presence, suffering its own form of torment as it's transformed into something it was never meant to be. Remember the neural echoes, the fragments of consciousness from countless previous pilots, all trapped together in eternal suffering, screaming their madness and their anguish into the void. This is the brutal secret that Chaos Knights hide within their sarcophagus. This is the price paid by those who pilot these towering engines of destruction. And this is why, in a universe full of terrors, the fate of a Chaos Knight pilot represents one of the most complete and irreversible forms of damnation imaginable. They are prisoners in a hell of their own making, weapons wielded by forces they cannot control, victims and perpetrators simultaneously, trapped in a cycle of suffering that extends beyond death into an eternity of torment. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But for those who sit upon the throne, mechanicum of a Chaos Knight, there is something worse than war. There is eternal suffering, consciousness without peace, existence without hope. They are the damned among the damned, and their torment serves as a reminder that in the 41st millennium, there are indeed fates worse than death. If you found this deep dive into the horror of Chaos Knights illuminating, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We explore the darkest corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore, bringing you detailed analyses of the universe's most terrifying aspects. Hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss future videos, where we'll continue to examine the grimdark reality that makes Warhammer 40,000 one of the most compelling science fiction settings ever created. Until next time, remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, some secrets are better left buried within their sarcophagi.